What's up? I'm OBG. So this is my top 20 Japanese whiskeys that you can find in the market right now. The Japanese category is my favorite category by far, and we're gonna break down my top 20 favorite Japanese whiskeys for budget option, mid-tier option, and some higher end stuff. But mostly there's a lot of budget and mid-tier stuff. Yes, there is a few exceptions on there, but otherwise they are pretty much all accessible. All right, let's jump into it, and we're gonna start with number 20. Suntory Toki. This is a blend of 3 distillery owned by Jim Beam Suntory, and in this blend you're gonna get some Yamazaki distilled spirit, some Hakushu, and some Cheetah. This is 100% malted barley. This has been aged for a minimum of 3 years, and this has a proof of 80 or an ABV of 40, and it retails for $30. This is the entry level to the Beam Suntory book here, where you get the Hakushu, the Yamazaki, and the Cheetah distillery. This is a blend of all 3 distilleries, and for $30 you're getting 3-year minimum. This is a real steal, and this is the cheapest thing you're gonna find out of Beam Suntory. There's no way you'll ever find anything that is Hakushu, or there is the Cheetah, or there is Yamazaki at $30. They're all gonna be in the 50 and up, and even then Yamazaki starts at 70. So this is a great budget option just for you to understand what Suntory is actually doing in the market. Number 19, Marshinshu IY Regular. This mash bill is 70% malted barley, 30% corn, and is aged in ex-bourbon casks for 3 to 12 years. But this has a minimum of 5 years on average. The proof on here is 80 and the ABV is 40. This retails for only $30. The Mars Distillery was established in 1949. It's the highest elevation of all the distilleries, sitting at 2,600 feet, but only that. It's the first distillery to have a coffee pot still. Now, coffee not with 2 E's, but EY, and it's a special still. Now, they have turned out some amazing stuff, and when you look at back inventory of all the vintage things that they've had, you're in some really, really rare, expensive whiskey. But here, you get a chance to try something that is really good and is only $30, and it's a minimum of 5 years, so this is a real steal. At number 18, Marshinshu AY 45. The mash bill on here is the same as the previous, but it's reverse. 70% corn, 30% malted barley. This is aged in ex-bourbon casks for 2 to 5 years. This has a proof of 90 or an ABV of 45, and this retails for $35. Now, once again, just like the previous one, but they've reversed the mash bill. I did a review of this. This is just a mind blower. At $35, you really can't find anything better on the market. I still can't believe the quality of the juice that's in there, and I even have a bottle here, right here. This is just a mind blower. You gotta get this for $35. This is just a real steal. Number 17, Taguchi 3-year-old. This is a blend of Scottish malt and Canadian malt. This, of course, is aged for 3 years, and it has a proof of 80 or an ABV of 40, and this retails for $40. I know you're probably thinking, what? Scottish and Canadian malts? Yes. Japan has a long tradition of blending whiskeys from around the world, not just theirs. And there's a lot of really, really good master blenders out there where they create malts and then they blend them together and then they age them in Mizuno oak or all kinds of other casks from around the world. This is what makes Japanese whiskey so special. And if you try this whiskey, I'll promise you, this is gonna open your eyes to a lot of things where if we look at America or we look at Scottish whiskey, it's just not the same thing at all in any shape or form, where they use only one grain and they usually own one type of style of oak, and that's what they stick to. In Japan, everything is mixed up. This is just a great opportunity for you to understand how crazy this is. Number 15. Fuyu. This mash bill is 50% malt and 50% grain from 3 distilleries on the largest island of Japan, Honshu. This is aged for 2.5 years in white oak and then finished in Mizuno oak for a total of 3 years. Now, this has a proof of 80 or an ABV of 40, and it retails for $40. Fuyu specializes in blending whiskey, just like the Taguchi distillery that I just showed you before. This is a really interesting concept. Once again, they buy spirits from all other distilleries or from around the world. They blend them. And this one is special because at $40, you're also getting 6 months aged in Mizunara oak, and Mizunara oak is super expensive. This is a great recommendation. At number 14, Kikori rice. This mash bill is 100% rice, then aged in ex-bourbon, ex-sherry, and French oak cask. This has been aged for 3 years and has a proof of 82 or an ABV of 41. Yes, you heard me right, 100% rice. Once again, the Japanese market is all about breaking through and doing something new. Now, Kikori came onto the market about 10 years ago, I think, and this brand has just caught on fire. Since it's really accessible, the juice is really good in there. I've had it several times. This is just a great buy and one that you should try, since I'm pretty sure you've never had 100% rice-based whiskey. This is just a lot of fun. At number 13, the Cheetah. The mash bill on here is 100% corn. There is no age statement, since this is a blend of whiskeys that has been aged in wine cask, sherry cask, and ex-bourbon cask. The proof on here is 86 or an ABV of 43, and this retails for $50. Now, this distillery was established in 1973. It's owned by Beam Suntory, of course, and this is 100% corn. This is something super rare. Even in the US market, you're never gonna see 100% corn. That just doesn't exist. They usually put some malted barley so that they could get the enzymes, but 100% corn is hard to find. And at the same time, this is Beam Suntory and the Cheetah. It's just worth every penny you're gonna spend on that. For 50 bucks, this is a buy. Number 12. The Yamazaki Reserve Single Malt. This is the most famous distillery out of Japan. The mash bill on here is 100% malted barley. This has been aged in Bordeaux cask, sherry cask, and there's some malt that has been mature in Mizunara oak. There is no age statement on this whiskey. This has a proof of 86 or an ABV of 43, and this retails for $70. Now, like I said, this distillery is just the holy grail. Established in 1923, Yamazaki is it. And when we look at Yamazaki as a whole and the whiskeys that they make, $70 is the cheapest thing that they make. Yes, you have the Toki that I told you that's owned by Suntory, where you get all 3 distilleries. But when we talk about Yamazaki itself, it starts at $70. Yes, you will get the 12 for probably $150, and then after that, when you get to 18, you're talking about $8,000. And after that, when you're going to the 25, you're talking about $20,000. And when we get to the 55-year-old Yamazaki, well, it's $1 million a bottle. This is the most prestigious distillery out of all of Japan. This is just the most expensive juice at the same time. This has a lot of history behind it. And for $70, that's gonna give you a real insight on what Yamazaki is. So this is a top recommendation, and at the same time, it's a great entry value. Number 11, Hibiki Harmony. This mash bill is a blend of malts that are made at Yamazaki Distillery, the Hakushu Distillery, and some grain malts from the Cheetah Distillery. This is a total of 10 different malts and grain, aged in 5 different types of oak. There's no age statement on here, and this has a proof of 86 or an ABV of 43. This retails for $80. Hibiki is something special. Like I said, 10 different malts and grains, aged in 5 different types of casks. This is just pure insanity. This is a master blender's dream here, where you're just sitting around trying to figure out things and really create something amazing. The Harmony is the entry level, and yes, at $80, that's cheap, because the 17-year-old is at least $8,000. The 21-year-old is at least $1,500, and the 30-year-old, that's pretty much impossible to find today, is about $15,000 a bottle. So that's, again, gonna give you an insight on these master blenders really putting some really good grains and malts together, and then aging them and figuring out what is the perfect style of Hibiki. This is an absolute must if you're trying to get into Japanese whiskey, even for $80. Number 10, Nikka from the barrel. This is a blend of Japanese malt from the Yochi Distillery and grain whiskey from the Miyagiko Distillery. This has been married in oak cask. There is no age statement on here, but the proof is 102.8, or it has an ABV of 51.4, and this retails for $80. Now, when we talk about Japanese whiskey, there's only one man, Masataka Takutsuru. Masataka Takutsuru is the holy grail when it comes to the man that has changed the industry. He went to Scotland, I think in 1915. He came back in 1923. Guess to build what? the Yamazaki Distillery. And then he went on to build the Yoshi Distillery. Now, this is just an amazing whiskey. It is said that they're using over 100 different malts and grains to build this whiskey. At the same time, this is really high proof, which makes it really rare when we talk about Japanese whiskeys. I've done a review of this before. I own a few bottles. This is just an absolute steal. This is gonna be a harder find, but if you can find it, you should buy as much as you can of this because this is just insane juice for the money. Again, over 100 proof, Japanese, that is just so rare. And at $80, this makes it a steal because collectors are just fighting over this type of whiskey. I'm telling you, focus on this one. Nikka is just the shit. At number 9, Kaiyo Whiskey. And there's 5 of them. There's the Kaiyo Barrel Strength, the Peated, the 7-year-old, the Sherry, and the Mizunara Oak. Now, all of these are bought juice and are imported to Japan and then aged according to their style, but they're all 100% malted barley, unchilled filtered, and they are all aged for a minimum of 3 years in Mizunara Oak, except of course for the 7-year-old. All of these retail between $100 to $80. The Kaiyo Barrel Strength has a proof of 106 or an ABV of 53. The Kaiyo Peated has a proof of 92 or an ABV of 46. The Kaiyo 7-year-old has a proof of 96 or an ABV of 48. The Kaiyo Regular, aka Black Label, has a proof of 86 or an ABV of 43. I've made a review about these whiskeys. They are very good. I've put a link below. $100 is a lot of money for these since you could buy other things, but it's important that if you have the budget or if you just want to try one, they are exceptionally good. And you're getting 100% Mizunara Oak. Like I said previously, Mizunara Oak is super expensive, but why is that? Well, first of all, Mizunara Oak takes a lot longer to grow than American Oak. Mizunara Oak isn't as big of a tree as American Oak. Mizunara Oak leaks when you do barrels with them, where American Oak doesn't really leak. So when you're trying to create a really good cask to age whiskey in Mizunara Oak, you need absolute expert cooperage, you need really old trees, and it's just in really big demand, and there's not a lot out there for distillers to age that whiskey in there. So when you see Mizunara Oak on something, that means that it's gonna be a lot pricier. Number 8. Nikka Yoshi. This mash bill is 100% malted barley. There is no age statement, or do we know what type of oak this has been aged in. The proof is 90 or an ABV of 45, and this retails for $100. Like I previously said, Nikka is the shit. Masataka Takotsuru is just a genius. He created a lot of these really amazing whiskeys, and this is proof in the pudding. You can't go wrong with this. This is just a stunner of a whiskey. Yes, we don't know the age statement, but we do know it's 100% malted barley. Yes, we don't know what type of oak, but I promise you, if you try these whiskeys, you will not regret it. Number 7. Nikka Coffee Grain Whiskey. This mash bill is 95% corn and 5% malted barley. There is no age statement on here, nor do we know what type of oak that it was aged in. The proof is 90 or an ABV of 45, and this retails for 100. Like I previously said for the Yoshi is 100% malted barley. This is 95% corn, 5% malted barley. Again, Masataka Takotsuru, just the man. This is an impressive whiskey. At the same time, you're getting almost 100% corn, and like I previously said, that's really hard to find. That is just an oddity in the market, and this is an absolute buy. Number 6. Nikka Takotsuru Pure Malt. 100% malted barley. There is no age statement on this. This has a proof of 86 or an ABV of 43, and this retails for 100. Yes, I know. Nikka again? Why? Well, again, Nikka Takotsuru. That's the name of the whiskey. Takotsuru is the man. I cannot overstate this. This is an absolutely beautiful whiskey. I mean, oh my. And $100 is just still a steal if you can find it. I absolutely recommend that you get this. This is always a stunner. I promise you, you won't go wrong with this one. Number 5. Shishibu Ichiro's Malt, White Label, Malt and Grain World Whiskey. Now, this is a blend of Japanese, American, Scottish, Canadian, and some unknown malts and grains from around the world. It's been aged for 3 to 5 years. The proof on here is 93 or an ABV of 46.5, and this retails for $100. The Shishibu Distillery cranks out some crazy stuff, but you're thinking, 5 different distillates from 5 different countries. That doesn't make any sense. Again, these master blenders are focused, and I did a review of this. I have a bottle right here, and right next to it, I have the blue label, which is like the reserve. The blue label is $500 a bottle, and it's just a real mind blower. There's a link below if you want to see it, but oh my. Ichiro's Malt is just something amazing, and if you look at like auctions and old whiskeys, they are selling for $5, $10, $15, $20, $30,000 a bottle easily. This is some really, really special stuff. That's why it's so high on the list. This is one of my favorite whiskey that you can find in the US. Yes, a lot of people are gouging it at retail, but I'm sure that you can find a white label for about $100. The blue label is about $500, but there is some places where you can get it for about $350. So just keep that in mind. At number 4, Yamazaki 12-year-old. This is 100% malted barley that has been aged in Mizunara oak. This has a proof of 86 or an ABV of 43, and this retails for $150. Now, again, this is an entry level 12-year-old in Mizunara oak. If you'd be drinking 18, you'd be at 1,000. If you'd be drinking 25, you'd be at 15,000, and at 55-year-old, you'd be at $1 million. This is the best value for the money with an age statement. 12-year-old, Mizunara oak, Yamazaki, the greatest distillery that has ever existed in Japan. This is worth every penny. I know that $150 is a lot, but it's really worth the money if you're trying to understand Japanese whiskey. Number 3, Kurayoshi 18-year-old. This is 100% malted barley that has been aged for 18 years in white oak. This has a proof of 100 or an ABV of 50, and this retails for $200. This distillery was established in 1910. They have a very long reputation of cranking out really good whiskey. I know, $200 is a lot of money for an 18-year-old, since you could be drinking really nice Scottish whiskey single malts for less than that. But when it comes to Japanese whiskey, that is hard to find. This is still very good for the money if you can find it. This is just going to be a harder find, so just beware and make sure you don't get gouged on it. If somebody's trying to sell it to you for $500 or $600, that's a pass. $250 maximum on here. Number 2, Hakushu 12-year-old. This is 100% malted barley. This has been aged in American oak for 12 years, and this has a proof of 86 or an ABV of 43, and this retails for $200. Now, again, this is part of the big 3 of Suntory, where you have Yamazaki, you have Hakushu, and you have the Cheetah. Hakushu, 12-year-old, 100% American oak. If you'd be at Yamazaki, you'd be in Mizunara oak. This is worth every penny. I would go for the Yamazaki 12 first because it's just, I think, better in style for Japanese. But if you're looking to drink some really crazy juice, this Hakushu 12 is worth $200. You won't go wrong. Of course, this is for a special occasion, but again, this is going to be a harder find, and it's going to be more in a specialized store that understand what actually Hakushu is. And at number 1, Kumisen Mayo Single Grain Whiskey 17-year-old. This is 100% malted barley. This has been aged in American oak for 17 years. It has a proof of 84 or an ABV of 42, and this retails for $300. The Kumisen Suyu Distillery has been making whiskey for a very long time. They are very specialized in these single grains. They don't make a lot of it, but if you're lucky and you can find a bottle of that, then you will be really impressed. It is worth actually $300, even if that doesn't make a lot of sense. But when we're talking about Japanese whiskey, it's also the size of production. The smaller the size, the smaller the sample, the harder the bottles to find. And this, again, is 100% American oak. Like, there's not a lot out there. Somebody spent the time, the money to bring the barrels in and then do this whiskey 17 years ago. So that's what is my number one pick. I hope you enjoy this top 20 Japanese whiskey list that I created for you. I've done a top 10 rum, and I've also just did a top 20 ryes that are US that you absolutely need to see at the same time. Otherwise, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, since that helps a lot. You can leave a comment. I will gladly reply to you as soon as I get to it. Otherwise, don't forget to share, tell your friends, and subscribe, my friend. All right, that's gonna do it for me. I'm OBG for tastingskills.com. Please remember, my friend, stay sober. Peace.